Welcome again to the SSIS 24.3 Statewide Release webinar. My name is Eric Krett, and I supervise the user support team here in the SSIS business section, and I'm standing in for Radio Ross today, who is on vacation. So we'll go ahead and get started here with the agenda. We'll start with welcome introductions and announcements, housekeeping, and the Tennyson warning as usual. We'll go right into our Mentor of the Month. And then we'll talk a little bit about the release. All right, I'm going to hand it over to Cynthia now to discuss any announcements or updates.
Good morning, everybody. So wanted to have a few announcements this morning, a few updates from the SSIS section. Just adjust this here. So first, wanted to give everybody an update on where we are with our follow-up from the child protection review that we did of SSIS over the winter that we finished up in May. So just have a couple of things. Our first update from that is going to be included in this next release. And this was an item that came up quite a bit from a wide variety of agencies related to the child maltreatment report, and really sounds pretty simple, but was a big ask for that for the amount of characters to be increased. It was really not working for people, and so we're excited to have that in. We have seven additional updates that are going to be released. They're all related somehow to chronology, and we are hoping that all of those will be in 25-1. That's our goal. So we're working on getting those all bundled up nicely. The other item that I wanted to mention was the out-of-home placement plan. As folks know, that is, of course, been a huge area of, I'll just say huge area where we need some improvement. And our folks in SSIS business, led by Erica Jepson, and then with Nicole Needham on the foster care policy side, have worked to revise, have a revised draft of that's really only includes the statutorily required information, and has kind of cut out all of the other things that were niceties for some reason or another, and have rearranged the order of that document for really just to meet the parent and child needs better, so they understand what's required. In a little bit, it's a little bit more clear. So right now where we are with that is we have been conducting what we'll just call like vetting sessions, revisions with different stakeholders, and we're waiting on some final approval of that from the folks in DCYF in leadership. We're also looking at multiple options for how we are going to make these updates. So we're looking at all of the several different things concurrently. That includes, there's a lot of solutions, I'll say, that are different than what we may have had in the past that we're looking at utilizing. And so we are really looking at all of them at the same time to try to be as efficient with our time as possible. To figure out how we can get this, once we have approval, how we can get this done quickly, and how we can make sure that during that process, we're also then including folks to vet this before it gets out, before it even gets to pilot. So, we're excited about that. Also wanted to give a brief update on some of our activities as we're moving towards modernization. One of the items that folks may remember that we've talked about that we are required to do is, and we're really excited about doing this because this is really about our current system performance, is we've onboarded a contracted person to really dig into our current system and assess any opportunities for improvement for performance. And we're also in the process of of selecting a vendor to do the full assessment for modernization of SSIS. And I don't have a definite time frame on that, but we'll give you an update at every coffee talk and in every update. So want to just make sure that folks know that that is in process. We had good responses for our RFO and are really excited about the potential folks that we have to work with on that. And there will be, of course, as we get closer, more information about opportunities to be involved in that as well. The other item I want to make sure just to highlight is that our SSIS Partnership Committee has really been reformed and reinvigorated with a new charge to provide strategic guidance on our efforts to modernize. And so we have a excellent representation from across the state, from county and tribal agencies, and are very excited to have people who are really excited about the work that we have ahead of us, because there's a lot. And additionally, through that partnership committee, we will have other time limited work groups and other opportunities for people to provide input and be in conversation with us about SSIS. So those are the updates I have, although I will add one more that's not on the screen. I know that there are a lot of you who will be at the MNCASA, the Accounting and Fiscal Conference, and we will have 2 SSIS sessions there. So we're really excited about getting to see you guys in person as well.
Thank you, Cynthia. Your slide came up real quick. It looks like I had some housekeeping details to go over before we get started. So attendees have been muted upon entry. To speak, please raise your hand using the reaction emoji at the bottom of your screen, and you will be unmuted by panelists. Questions can also be submitted using the chat feature, which will be monitored by SSIS business operations staff. Closed captioning can be enabled using the close or CC button located on the bottom left of your screen. This session is being recorded and will be posted on the Minnesota Child Welfare Training Academy website in the near future. And a follow-up document will be prepared and distributed to attendees 7 to 10 days following the WebEx event. Here's that Tennyson warning that we like everybody to review before we jump into the rest of the webinar. So I'll give you a couple minutes to read this over. All right, hopefully you've had an opportunity to review the Tennyson warning. This is also included in the copy of the PowerPoint that's sent out by Heidi in advance. All right, drum roll, please. The next announcement we have is the Mentor of the Month, and I'm going to hand it over to Heidi Morris, our Mentor Coordinator.
Hey, Rick, thank you. Good morning, everybody. I am really excited to share that our Mentor of the Month is Teresa Schmidt from Douglas County. Teresa was actually nominated by 2 different people from her agency, which is pretty cool. We haven't had that happen before. She was nominated by Sarah Hacker and Jordan Anderson. Per Sarah, she says, I would like to nominate our mentor, Teresa Schmidt, for the next Mentor of the Month. She has been with our agency for a very long time and is our only mentor. She works very hard to ensure that SSIS stays up and running. She's put a lot of time and effort for being a pilot agency and with all of the SSIS changes. She is amazing. I don't know what we'll do when she decides to leave us someday. And per Jordan Anderson, Jordan says, Teresa consistently goes above and beyond her role as SSIS mentor. She has always been eager to teach me new things about SSIS, taking the time to explain complex concepts in a clear and understandable way. Her dedication to my learning has significantly improved my understanding and skills working with SSIS. So, Teresa, on behalf of the SSIS BizOps team and Douglas County, thank you for all you do, and thank you for being an amazing mentor. If you have somebody that you'd like to nominate from your agency as your mentor of the month, please feel free to send me an email with a brief paragraph sharing why we should recognize your person as the mentor of the month. And I will put my email address in the chat for those of you who have someone you'd like to nominate. But anyway, thank you again and congratulations, Teresa.
Congratulations, Teresa, and thank you to all of the mentors and coordinators out there at your agency. You are much appreciated. And thank you, Heidi. I'm going to turn it over to Marcia now to give a big thank you to our pilot agencies.
Thanks, Eric. Yeah, we want to definitely give a huge shout out for our pilot agencies this release. So we had Big Stone, Lac qui Parle, and Olmsted counties. Of course, everybody knows that we have extended our statewide release till next week. And so that also means that pilot was extended an extra week with an extra pilot. And that's always a little extra work. So really want to give a huge shout out. They have been really amazing to work with, really detail oriented, which is exactly what we need when we are looking for pilots. So thank you guys so much. It's a big reason why we push things out so that we can make sure we can put out the best product possible come statewide release. So thank you. And as always, we're always looking for additional pilot agencies. If your agency is interested in piloting, of course, we want everybody to pilot at some time or another. So if your agency is interested in piloting, reach out, let me know. I have my email there on the slide. You can also reach out to the help desk and they'll get it over to me if you're interested. I try to get those filled up about a month before we actually go to pilot. So we'll be looking for those 24.4 pilot agencies in no time at all. So thanks. Thank you, everyone. And thanks, Big Stone, Lac qui Parle, and Olmsted. And it looks like I'm next again. So I'm going to kick this off. And actually, Cynthia already mentioned this right off the bat, but this is our first enhancement that we want to point out came from that SSIS review. So the character limit on the comments field in the conclusion tab of the child maltreatment report, which is within the child protection assessment work groups, that's been extended from 500 characters to allow for 4,000 characters. And this enhancement came about as an agency request during the SSIS review. So I think multiple agencies also said that that would be helpful. It is the first of many, as Cynthia also noticed or noted, of many enhancements that are coming over the next several releases related to the recommendations out of the SSIS review from this past spring. So stay tuned for more. We have some really exciting enhancements coming soon that I think will really be a positive impact for a lot of agency users. And I think with that, we are going to pass it off to Erica.
Thank you, Marcia. So I'm Erica Peterson. I'm a child welfare subject matter expert with SSIS Business Operations. I have a few slides on the new non-caregiver trafficking assessment. First, there is a new general report titled Child Maltreatment Summary Non-Caregiver Trafficking Assessment. This report is now available and can be found under the Child Maltreatment folder within General Reports. This report is similar to the Child Maltreatment Summary Family Assessments report. However, the new report filters on the new report track titled NCA Non-Caregiver Trafficking Assessment. The report will exclude screened out reports. It'll show the number of child maltreatment reports that contain the allegation of non-caregiver trafficking. Do the next slide, please. Okay, the new non-caregiver trafficking assessment track went into effect on July 1st. If you recall, we put out interim guidance until this release when it is in SSIS. So intakes in the NCA track can only be referred to assessment work groups in the NCA track. Best practice for naming these work groups is to type NCA behind the client's name in the description field of the intake. This will help identify the NCA work groups. NCA work groups should be under the child, youth, or victim's name. The originating cases should be under the custodial parent or guardian. Next slide. There are 2 new fields that have been added into the child maltreatment report allegation tab in support of the NCA track. These fields are non-caregiver traffickers and number of alleged offenders. These fields will be in every CMR. However, the non-caregiver trafficker field will autofill to not applicable, so nothing will need to be done with this unless there are allegations of non-caregiver sex trafficking. When there is an allegation of non-caregiver sex trafficking, this will need to be changed to sex traffickers in the dropdown, which will autofill all required fields except for victim and date of occurrence. Offender information for the NCA track should be entered in the CMR description of incident. The alleged offender should not be added as a participant in the work group. The option of non-caregiver sex trafficker for offender relationship to victim will also no longer be available in any track aside from NCA. I do
Hey,
see
Erica.
Joanne,
Thank
your
you.
question of alleged offender names are known. Should they be added as participants? They should not be added as participants. If an agency knows the alleged offender's names, they can be added into the description of incident, but they should not be added as participants. Okay, and the next slide. Lastly, there is a new BRASS service code for NCA work groups. BRASS 110 non-caregiver trafficking assessment should be used in the service field dropdown when time recording any contacts or activities in SSIS NCA work groups. I believe that Holly will discuss this a little bit in more detail further into the coffee talk. And then my final slide just has some resources. I believe that this was sent out with the slides yesterday. However, I didn't have the link for the non-caregiver trafficking assessment job aid. That is on here now, and it will be a link in the presentation that will be posted in 7 to 10 days on PartnerLink. And I believe I will pass it off to Allie.
Thanks, Erica. Morning, everyone. This morning, I'm just going to talk about a new enhancement on one of our general report grids. And you may not have this slide in the PowerPoint you received, but this will also be posted in the one that's posted to PartnerLink. So there were 2 new optional columns added to the continuous placement grid type in the general report. And agencies are encouraged to use this report to ensure both of these AFCAR's required fields are completed for all of the open continuous placement episodes. So the 2 new columns are ICWA and the environment at removal. These can be added to the grid by clicking on the column chooser next to the name column and selecting those specific columns. I'm going to hand it off to Anna.
Thank you, Ellie. Good morning. My name is Anna Chalupka. I am an SSIS Adult Protection Trainer with the User Support Team. The Adult Protection Intake Assessment has been updated in the slide. So you can see the Adult Protection Intake Assessment replaces the Adult Protection Intake Assessment and Response Priority tool in the APS intakes. The updated assessment includes updated contents, tab labels, header fields, and decision calculations. Next slide, please. There's a couple of reminders. If you have any open APS intakes that have the previous version of the tool in a complete status, it can be finished, either screen in or screen out, and it can be finished with the previous version tool. If you have any open APS intakes that have the previous version of the tool in an incomplete status, this will continue to display the previous version of the tool, and you can allow editing of the SDM tool. However, it is we are recommending that to delete the previous incomplete tool and complete the updated adult protection intake assessment, SDM. Next slide. So with the header fields, the title change from the adult protection intake assessment and response priority to adult protection intake assessment. Evident change trademark was also added at the top right. The header field titles were changed. Screening decision field is changed to tool screening decision. Response priority field is changed to tool response priority. Vulnerable adult field was changed to adult referred to APS. Screening override field changed to agency screening decision. And the response priority override field is now changed to agency response priority field. Next slide, please. The tabs and contents were also updated. The screening tab have changed to vulnerable adult tab. The self-neglect tab have changed to neglect tab. The caregiver tab is now under the neglect tab. The emotional abuse tab is now under the abuse tab. The physical abuse tab and sexual abuse tabs are also now under the abuse tab. The screening overrides tab had changed to the override tab, and the agency prioritization tab has been added. And also keep in mind, every tab now requires a response from an APS worker. Next slide, please. The updated version of the vulnerable adult status tab has 5 questions. There are new business rules, so we're created to determine editability and selection of the fields. And I have an example in a couple of the next 2 slides. Next slide, please. So here's an example within the vulnerable adult status tab. If the adult receives personal care assistance, that first question is marked no. The next 3 questions will be required to be addressed to determine functional status for the adult vulnerable. If any of the 3 questions were answered no, then the last question is required. So again, these questions are required to be addressed to determine functional status for our adult vulnerable. Next slide, please. Another example, if the first question, which is the adult receives personal care assistance, the first question is marked yes, then this affirms categorical status of the adult vulnerable. Only yes answer to the first question will gray out the other fields on the tab. If you answered no to the first question, then questions 2, 3, and 4 are going to be required. If any of the questions 2, 3, and 4 are answered no, then question 5 is required. If you answer all 5 questions that are no, then this indicates that the adult is not vulnerable and the additional tabs in the assessment will be grayed out and no longer editable. Okay, next tab, please. Next slide. Thank you. All right, so the neglect tab, the self-neglect and caregiver neglect tabs are now under the new neglect tab. So we need to select the appropriate responses based on the agency screening decision. If the allegation is not being addressed, you must check none of the above apply. So that's the checkbox at the very bottom of the screen. So again, keep in mind that workers will need to review each of the allegations tabs. So that's the neglect, abuse, and financial exploitation, and make a decision as to each allegation. Next slide, please. So this is what the prior version of the abuse, maltreatment tabs. So abuse, physical, and sexual abuse are separated. Next slide, please. With the updated version, the emotional, physical, and sexual abuse tabs are now under the new abuse tab. Again, on this screen, workers will need to select the appropriate responses based upon the agency screening decision. And again, if the allegation is not being addressed, workers must check none of the above apply. Slide, please. With the financial exploitation tab on the prior version, there were 2 fields with description. In the updated version, there are 4 options to choose from. Again, select the appropriate responses based on your agency screening decision. And again, if the allegation is not being addressed, workers must check the none of the above apply. All right. The override, the policy override tab. So in the previous version, the screening override tab contains both the policy override and the discretionary override selections. In the updated versions, they are now separated out with new names, and they're called policy override and agency prioritization tabs. Couple of things to keep in mind about this tab. The policy override to screen in field is editable if the VA or if the vulnerable adult tab affirms VA status and no maltreatment, and the none of the above apply in each maltreatment tabs were selected, because this will indicate that it meets policy criteria to be screened in. The second thing to keep in mind is if the policy override to screen in field is not going to be editable, if the vulnerable adult tab affirms VA status and a maltreatment is selected in 1 or more allegations, because this will indicate that it meets policy criteria to be screened in and a policy override does not exist. Next slide, please. So this is what the agency prioritization tab looks like in the updated version. Just a couple of just technical rules about this tab. If you select the screen out per agency prioritization guidelines, you must select the agency prioritization reason. If the agency prioritization reason is not editable, if you do not click the screen out per agency's prioritization guidelines checkbox. If you deselect the screen out per agency prioritization guidelines, it will remove or clear your agency prioritization reason. If you deselect one of the agency prioritization reason, The reason you selected will be removed and cleared. And finally, if you do not select the screen out per agency prioritization guidelines, then you have completed this tab. Next slide, please. All right, so our last tab is the response priority tab. This is what the prior version looks like. And at the bottom screenshot is the updated version. So with the updated version, there are 3 sections. The first section is the EPS response within 24 hours. That second section is the middle section, which is the priority response within 24 hours. And then at the bottom section is the response within 72 hours. And I'm going to talk about each of the sections here in the next few slides. Okay. So with the EPS response within 24 hours section, this field is required if you screen in the EPS. Just keep in mind that the SDM Adult Protection EPS Intake Assessment Screening and the SDM Adult Protection Intake Assessment are independent of each other. So the results of these assessments do not interact with each other. Next slide. The priority response within 24 hours, if you select this option, the agency response reprioritization field is required to be completed. The agency prioritization comment field is not required when a worker selects no agency response, reprioritization applied. If a worker selects decrease response time by 1 level, then a worker, and if a worker does not add the comment in the comments field, the tool will be saved, but it's going to be saved as an incomplete. The agency prioritization comments, keystrokes are limited, just an FYI about that. And then the last section, the response within 24 hours section, if that is selected, then the agency response reprioritization field is required to be completed. Agency prioritization comment field is not required when a worker selects no agency response reprioritization applied. The agency prioritization comments field is required when a worker selects increase response time by 1 level. If a worker does not add comments in the comments field and that field is selected, then the tool will be saved, but it will be saved as an incomplete. And again, the comments field, those keystrokes in the agency prioritization comments field are limited. We created a technical training documentation regarding the adult protection intake assessment, and it is linked in this PowerPoint. Also, if you are, for those of you who wanted to review for policy clarification and guidelines regarding this new version of the adult assessment intake, you can click on the link on the right-hand side and see the Adult Protection Intake Assessment Policies and Procedural Manual Appendix E. I'm also going to be updating the Adult Protection SSIS User Guide to reflect all of these changes and functionalities of the updated assessment. And it will be available online, and it will be posted in the SSIS resource page in next month, September 2024. Okay, so that concludes the new or the updated version of the Adult Protection Assessment Intake Assessment. So at the next slide, this is regarding the Adult Maltreatment Report Description of Incident Formatting. So in that Description of Incident tab, if you click on the E with the editor, with the formatting. So within the screen, the formatting option within the editor view is now correctly disabled for selection. Okay, next slide, please. And lastly, I just wanted to share with you that we do have the 2024-2025 SSIS Adult Protection Training dates. Please register for one of our upcoming trainings. It is offered in 2 half-day virtual classes. It is from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. Day 1 covers the intake work group. Day 2 covers the assessment work group. And the adult protection policy staff will be available during each class. So you can sign up and register for SSIS in the train link. And they are available and posted in the train link. All right, thank you so much. And I am going to pass it over to Andrea.
Thank you, Anna. This is Andrea, and I am a subject matter expert for SSIS admin. Today, we're going to talk about that there's been a couple changes made to role and functions. A new role and function of edit closed workgroups is now available. This is generally to be assigned to supervisors, mentors, and/or coordinators. This will provide the agency users the ability to change a unit in a closed workgroup or an intake, to update the access restriction on a closed workgroup or an intake for data privacy. What this means to you? If a role user has assigned workgroup function only, they will be able to add or edit open and close workgroups for primary and secondary workers. If a role user has assigned workgroups and edit closed workgroup functions, the user will be able to do all the things they already do with the assigned workgroup functions. In addition, they will be able to edit the unit and access restriction fields on closed workgroups. A role or user cannot be assigned edit closed workgroups only. If edit closed workgroups function is added to the role, the assigned workgroup must also be added. Next slide. Blue e-editor improvements. Improvements to the Blue e-editor field have been made for 4 screens: child maltreatment report, description of incident, case notes, note, contact activity, note, intake, description of need. Now, when you go to the expanded editor view, it includes a functioning save button and a new message that appears if the editor is closed and has unsaved changes. To include these improvements, a workflow change was implemented. Contact activity editors will now need to complete all required fields within the contact activity screen before they can open the Blue E. This change enables the save button and the new autosave. The autosave will happen automatically every 5 minutes when the editor is open. This change will not impact users that do not use the expanded editor. And know that this improvement only changes the order of operation. It does not add to it. Next slide. The What's New option located from Help on the SSIS toolbar has been updated to display a hyperlink that, when clicked on, will open a web browser to the SSIS notes and calendar. This is for quick and easy access to release documents, including What's New, release notes, known defects, and other resources posted for each release. Next slide. The Print to File section has been moved to a new tab. Access by selecting Export on the new side panel. Select Print on the side panel to return to the main printer dialog. This functions as before, just with a new look. Next slide. Print Preview, a new error message now displays if the user tries to save as PDF to a file location that is on Azure or Horizon hosted environments. This occurs on the Print Preview slide when the Save to PDF icon displays on the toolbar. If this message appears, you will need to make sure that you are mapping your file location and not on the hosted environment. One way to avoid this is to use the Personalizing Quick Access panel for saving from SSIS, which has instructions for mapping. That can be found along with other useful information on the SSIS resource page. This slide has been updated with new information and will be available on PartnerLink within 5 to 7 days. Thank you, and we're going to turn it over to Marcia.
Thanks, Andrea. So this next slide, I want to point out really because I don't want people to be alarmed when you see the what's new and the full page of document changes. They're pretty slight, but what I want to point out is this release, really, there was an update by a third-party vendor, so not SSIS. So it was a third-party vendor to a component which SSIS relies on for documents. And this change is something that SSIS does not control. However, it did create some unintended issues on some SSIS documents. And some documents that it created problems for required some slight changes to ensure that they can continue to meet the intended uses. So I'm really just pointing it out because I didn't want mentors to be alarmed when you see that full page of document updates. Really, we just wanted to point out the items. Most workers probably won't need a lot of help with those. They'll be pretty intuitive, the changes that we made, but we did want to make note of them. Most of them are pretty small, such as things like the date picker or check boxes in some instances are not working correctly. And so we made some changes pertaining to them or indicated workarounds for a couple of specific documents for those. The other thing that I want to note is the CPS notice of assessment summary. That one, because of some changes that we needed to make, that will require the RTF document header to be reattached after the statewide release next week. And then the other piece I wanted to note is, for the documents that had a change this release that were affected by this third-party vendor change, if you create that document template prior to this release but didn't finish it, you may run into some issues if you go back in to try to use it. So we included a couple of workarounds in the document section of the what's new. Essentially, the workarounds are, you can create the document new again, or if you do the reset to template, that will work. However, you need to remember that reset to template, when you choose that, it deletes any narrative that you may have already written. So you want to make sure that you're copying that so that you can paste it back into the document after you reset to template. So just keep those things in mind. Again, all of this is noted in the page that I have in the what's new on the various document changes. So there's really specific items in there. Make sure that you're taking a glance at that. I see Becky, is the CPS notice of assessment summary the only document that you'll need to upload the document header again? Correct. And that's an RTF document header. So yeah, it's just the CPS notice of assessment summary. The other ones, the slight changes that were made certain changes affect the document headers and certain do not. And so the rest did not. So thank you. Good question. And I think the next one is, I think we're going to hand it over to Holly for fiscal.
Good morning. This is Holly Reller, Fiscal Subject Matter Expert with SSIS Business Operations. There is a new BRAS code that has been added for the service non-caregiver trafficking assessment that applies to programs Child Welfare General and Child Protective Services. This is a staff-provided service with a default unit type of hour. The associated activities are listed on the slide, and BRAS 110 is available to be used with assessment or case management work group types. The current policy guidance will be to use this code only on assessment work groups for the time being, but case management work groups are expected to be implemented in a future release. Service 110 will be included in the SIGA report starting August 1st, 2024. The default unit type is hour, and SIGA will include conversions for minute, 15 minutes, and 30 minutes. Next up is Sam with MMIS claim exception codes.
This is Sam Breidenbach, Fiscal Subject Matter Expert with SSIS Business Operations. We had a few agencies report to the SSIS Help Desk that they were receiving claim exception codes 537 and 735 on their denied claims that were displaying blank without any wording in SSIS. We have now added both 537 and 735 as new exception codes defined in SSIS to match to MMIS. There was a third code, 765, that was updated in SSIS to include new language implemented by MMIS. The previous language and the new language are included on the slide here for reference. These codes help explain why a claim was paid differently by MHCP than it was billed by the provider, and they display in the Status Exceptions tab of the healthcare claim in SSIS. I will pass it to Allie next for AFCAR's updates and reminders.
Thanks, Sam. This is Allie Tesmer. I'm the Data Integrity Subject Matter Expert with Business Operations. And I'm going to talk a little bit about AFCAR's reminders and updates. So we recently added a new section in the SSIS updates called the AFCARs and Repository Corner that will include articles providing updates, tips, and reminders that will be helpful to agencies. And I've also included the link here for signing up for the SSIS updates if you need that. Also, just a reminder to agencies to run your repository and fix any errors that show up on there on a monthly basis. All right, so in this SSIS release, there's a new repository error that was added for the education screen. Repository error 4100 will display for children in placement who have either no education record or the last education record is more than a year before the continuous placement close date or more than a year before the current date if still open. As a continued effort towards statewide AFCARS compliance, new repository errors are being added to SSIS to assist agencies in identifying these errors on a regular basis. You can expect more updated repository errors in the next several releases. All right, so emails have gone out to many agencies requesting AFCARS error fixes over the past few weeks. Sorry, Eric, next slide. All right, these emails have gone out with data that needs to be fixed, along with instructions on how to make the specific changes or fixes to these errors or missing data for our state's top non-compliant items, which will be shown on the upcoming slides. The goal of these emails being sent out is to fix these AFCARS errors to get the state into compliance and avoid financial penalties to the state. If the state has issued penalties for non-compliance for AFCARS, at some point the penalties will be passed on to county and tribal agencies, which is what we are trying to avoid. Each of the 220 AFCARS elements must meet a 90 to 100% compliance threshold in order for the state to be compliant. The ones that have been sent out are currently the highest on our non-compliant elements list. So just a quick overview of a couple of the elements that have gone out. The first one that was sent out was regarding the removal, adoption, and TPLPC history screen. And what we saw the majority of these being was that these screens were either completely missing from cases or that they did not have a last updated date for the current continuous placement. And to assist agencies in being able to identify these more easily, this is on our list of upcoming repository errors for new releases, future releases, I should say. Another email that was sent out was in regards to the environment at removal. And this, if we go back to, we don't need to go back to the slide, but the column that was added to the continuous placement grid is hopefully going to assist agencies in identifying when this is still needed. Next is regarding the education screen. This was also an email that was sent out to agencies and really looking for the school enrollment, the current as of date, and the highest education level completed. And one of the more common questions that we received back for this one was, what do I do if the education record has already been finalized? And the system does require you to create a new education record and ensure that all of these fields are highlighted. And the screen is not editable past the finalized date. So that new education screen will need to be created if that finalized date has already passed. All right, the next one was the expectant or parenting youth, or the EPY screen. And this one is also on our top non-compliant element list. And this one also there was a common theme of this screen not yet being created, which was the majority of the errors that we were seeing, or that last review date had not been updated within 6 months. This screen does require that it's updated every 6 months for a youth in placement. Just a reminder on that one. And then the relationships screen. So we want to make sure that the relationships node is filled out throughout the case, and that AFCARS is actually really specifically looking for the parent, adoptive parent, or legal guardian relationships to be in there. And most recently, the inactive reason and the petition filing date have become required on the screen. So we're wanting to make sure that those items are correct within your case or for your clients. And we do understand that there are times where these relationships have been submitted to adoptions already. And so we're asking that agencies, if you're still open, that you can request a data fix for this. And if the agency is closed with that client or family, you can leave those for now. All right, and then the last one that was sent out was regarding the foster caretaker race. And this one, I know we got a lot of questions about it, but we're really looking for that foster parent tab to be filled out, and for that tribal membership information for one or both foster parents, if there is more than one foster parent listed, to be completed. So AFCARS is looking for that information within that area. And Eric, I will pass it back to you.
Wow, lots of information enclosed in this presentation. Well done, folks. Just as a reminder, we do have an SSIS resource page for our mentors and coordinators and SSIS users on Partner Link, and there is a link to that SSIS resource page on this slide. 24.3 release information, including what's new, release notes, and known defects, are highlighted on this slide as well, as to their location on the resource page. And as always, we have links to worker documentation as well as physical documentation and other training opportunities. For information related to this coffee talk, please reach out to the SSIS Help Desk. We have a new email handle we marketed earlier this month due to our agency transition, and that is now dcyf.ssishelp@state.mn.us. And please limit those emailing the help desk to be supervisors, mentors, or coordinators. And then also to view previous SSIS Coffee Talk webinar recordings and reference materials, you can visit the Minnesota Child Welfare Training Academy SSIS training site. And the link is provided on this slide. And then we want you all to save the date for September's Coffee Talk. The adoptions pre and post identity, what to do and when will be held on Tuesday, September 10th at 9 a.m. Pay attention to those SSIS updates that go out for information related to how to sign up for that webinar, and also email blasts from Heidi Morris, our SSIS mentor coordinator. The special guest speakers for the DCYF Permanency Quality are from the DCYF Permanency Quality Assurance team, Vanessa Ryan and Alicia Wolfman. And registration will remain open until the event begins. All SSIS users are welcome. Thank you everybody for participating in this coffee talk. We sure do appreciate the work you do at your agency, and we will see you next time.